Have you ever pinged MIA on your lane only for your team to die to the roam anyways? Have you ever tried to make a play only for your team to either not follow up or show up super late? Well, I'm here to tell you that those things can change. With this guide to pinging, I'm going to tell you how you can effectively use pings to communicate to your team and increase your chances of them listening. Pings are the most important and most effective form of communication in League, but they go massively underutilized by the average player, or the most common use of them looks like this. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can use pings to communicate properly. I'm going to split this video into two main parts. First, I'll go over the problem with not pinging at all. Then, I'll give you as many tips as possible to use pings across all different scenarios. The first issue, people just don't ping at all. I hate to break it to you, but people can only listen to your pings if you actually use them. You wouldn't expect yourself to be able to notice everything that's happening on the map at any given time, and you shouldn't expect your teammates to either. Now, it may be the fact that you think you're using pings, but if you would look back, you would realize that you actually aren't. But the bottom line is, if you aren't using pings in your games, no one is going to know what plays you want to make or be aware of what you see. Enemy laner roaming, objective fights, vision control, side lane assistance, the list goes on as to what you need to be pinging effectively. If you want to fight a dragon and you aren't pinging it 1 to 1.5 minutes before the dragon spawns, you're already behind. If you aren't pinging where you need vision, you're going to drastically limit your options and how you can move around the map. So before you start complaining that your team doesn't listen to your calls, first make sure that you're actually pinging them in the first place. And to add on to this point, I believe a lot of people don't use their pings to make calls because they're too scared to make the calls in the first place. Not pinging or making the call means you can't be the one to be blamed if it goes wrong. I would really suggest asking yourself if this is you, because you are massively limiting your impact on the game and your ability to climb if you're not willing to take risks and responsibility for the outcomes of your games. Now we can move on to how to actually use pings effectively. I'm going to give you a bunch of common scenarios where you need to use pings and show you how you should be using them. Being a mid laner, this one is a very common occurrence, but it can go for any lane as well. The enemy laner missing or roaming. I can already hear people complaining saying, but I ping missing mid and my side lanes don't listen. For some reason, people think that pinging missing mid is actually effective in communicating. There's a reason that nobody listens, and that's because your MIA ping is like whispering from across the room while there's a war happening on the other side. Nobody's going to notice. The proper way to communicate that your enemy laner is roaming is by using danger or caution pings down the path of the roam. These pings are much louder, and as you draw the path, they will get closer to your side lanes, meaning that it'll be more clear to your team. When you do this, there's no question about what your pings mean. There is clearly somebody moving to the other lane. And this is not exclusive to mid laners either, even if it's the most common. Supports, tops, even junglers when they have a good read on the enemy path can all utilize this strategy to minimize the chances of their teammates getting ganked. This one is another classic that people mess up all the time. As the game evolves from laning to mid game, the lane assignments will swap up. In the most general case, bot lane will go mid laners will go to the side lane with the next spawning objective, and the top laners will go to the other side. Getting stuck in a lane that doesn't give you the optimal impact on the game can completely kill a snowball or lead to messy map movements. But far too often I see the same thing. People just accept whatever lane they get thrown into and don't bother pinging to communicate where they want to go, or try to argue that even if they did ping, that their team wouldn't listen. This can easily be changed by a couple of good pings. First, if you're the one leaving base first, you should ping on my way to the lane you want to go to and assistance on the other. This will probably be enough for your team to know how to rotate. If they don't seem to listen, or they are the ones leaving the base first, then you should ping on them and then ping the lane they should go to. Once again, I rarely see this fail after a few pings. I think the most common reason for issues on objective fights and controlling vision is primarily because people don't actually ping really at all around these times. So I'm hoping that showing you how you should be pinging can get you in the right mindset. First, you should be deciding early on whether or not you want to fight an objective or trade it. I'll be using dragon as an example. If you want to fight the dragon, you should probably be pinging it 1.5 to 2 minutes before it spawns just to get people thinking about it. Then, between 1 and 1.5 minutes, you should be pinging on my way and assistance on or near the dragon and in the lane you need to push to get control. You should also be pinging to get vision in the area around the dragon and the enemy jungle. Far too often I see people showing up to objectives late and not getting their team on the same page. These pings should help you get way more control over objective fights. If you want to give dragon, it's as simple as pinging caution a few times on the dragon and pinging on my way to the other side of the map. This will clearly signal to your team that you want to give and look for a play elsewhere. There are way more situations in which you should be using pings, of course, but I think that these are some of the most common and should really help you figure out how much more you could be pinging and how much more effective they could be. Proper communication with pings is very important to me because when I was first shown how much more effective my pings could be, it opened my eyes to realizing how much more of the game was truly under my control. Despite what people may say or believe, you don't need to type or have voice comms to be able to communicate effectively in League. Pings are by far the most effective way of communicating, and you will be missing a lot of opportunities if you don't utilize them correctly. I would bet that there are still going to be people that say, nah, my team never listens to my pings anyways, so there's no point. This person is probably the same person that thinks they're pinging and actually isn't, or the person that pings MIA on their lane and wonders why no one listens. You need to be hypercritical of the way you're using pings in your game and ask yourself how you could have made what you were trying to communicate more clear to your team. And also, so what if your team doesn't listen? Like, first, I would bet that you're just pinging poorly, and second, you can never guarantee anything in League anyways. League is never about guarantees, it's about increasing your chances, tipping the odds in your favor. If you pinging better means that you increase your chances of your team listening and you can prevent a bad play or solidify a good play even 1 in 5 times, which is drastically lower compared to what it actually is, then it would still be worth it for you to do it. And the last point I want to reiterate, pings don't work if you don't use them. If you're too scared to make calls because you're worried that they might go wrong, then your impact on the game is going to be very low. Be selfish and make calls so you can learn and improve quickly. So hopefully after all these tips, your plays can start looking like this. Oh, that's perfect.